Hello everyone and welcome to another No Rest for the Wicked video. My name is Brian if you happen to be new around here, and this video is going to be focusing in on the patch notes for the Crucible update. We have a lot to cover, and if you guys saw my preview of the information in this, thank you so much for checking out that previous video. But I'm not going to waste any time because like with patch notes, there is so much to cover. Now, I'm also filming this specific event live, so there might be a little bit of interaction with chat. I'll try to highlight that along the way if it makes sense, but we're going to just dive in. We're going to have a great fun time, and if you guys enjoy this content, like, sub, and share. Those are great ways of helping the channel out as we slowly make our way up to 100,000. I'm not going to lie, 100,000 subscribers has been and is my pretty much only goal as a content creator. I know it will happen. You can just determine how quickly that happens by your sub. Let's dive into it. Kuro over on the official forums talking about the notes. Our team has been super hard at work for the last 2 months, and we're super stoked for you all to play this update for No Rest for the Wicked. We have revamped the Crucible, my dyslexia just gets the worst of me, from the ground up, which is now twice the size and has new art and new music. Features extensive randomized systems, 200 plus echoes, holy smokes, and a full-fledged roguelite mode. We also have added in a new enemy faction known as the Gloam, the Sen Chal vendor, I do apologize, an ability to exalt items and so much more. The exalting of the items for me is one of the things I'm really interested to see just how big of a boost that gives us. So please note, the spoken and unspoken questline has actually been reset. Your progress in your character have not. None of that's happened, but just this questline, because I think that's what they're talking about where it gets into it. Also, for those of you who are on Steam Deck, this is now a Steam Deck verified build, and they've done a lot to focus in on the performance. So let's talk about the performance updates. They reduce the CPU spikes occurring when loading in new areas and content. They reduce the CPU spikes occurring when instancing numerous visual effects and objects. They reduce memory usage in various different systems. They improve the broad phase calling pass and reducing the CPU utilization. They improve content loading sequencing to reduce cases of on-screen pop-in, and they improve particle simulation and rendering performance for various debris effects. They improve the mesh trail for performance. They improve cloth simulation performance, and they improve character animation systems performance. And they improve the CPU performance during cinematic sequences. They reduce the CPU overhead for physics simulations of clutter, debris, and destructible objects. Man, I failed that word hard. Well, let's keep it going. Reduced CPU overhead for pre-placed corpses. They reduce CPU overhead for animating objects' visual properties, and they reduce the CPU overhead for characters outside of the camera viewpoint. Now, as we get into the quality of life, they all have added, all hairstyles are available on both body types. So there you go. If that's been on your to-do list, congratulations. For content additions, the major Crucible rework, as I learned to speak English for the first time, says they added in a base Crucible chambers, or multiple new base Crucible chambers. Each trial run now randomizes more than triple has many other arenas, and includes more diverse art styles, new enemies, and more environmental challenges. For they've added in new systems, the Echo system, which will allow infinite customization for every Crucible run. And they added in spike traps and fire projectiles and levers as well. They've added in the new enemy faction, the Gloam, and Senshal, the vendor NPC, is hidden deep within the Crucible. He exalted gear, which permanently increases stats and improves enchantments, new interactions and dialogues for the Watcher in Spilled Blood, lots of new dialogue for Roan, who now provides tips and pointers to guide players towards quest. The spoken and unspoken quest has been restructured, allowing for the Crucible to be open much sooner and including new scenes and dialogue for Elsa and Roan. They added in new hairstyles for both body types, and players can now pet stray cats and dogs around Sacrament. So if that has been on your to-do list, I think that officially makes this an online game. I don't know why, but it ends up being just a way that things get connected, and it is a lot of fun. Let's get into the balance. They rebalanced health and damage curve for enemies. What does that mean? Well, we're going to have to go hands-on with that, and you guys can come hang out with me while we go hands-on with it if you so choose. We'll be live later this afternoon playing this game once I wrap up some work-based meetings. Then for the weapons, they updated names and descriptions for some of the armor quest items. They updated descriptions for the runes, and they added in more enchantments for bows. I'm really excited about that. I just released my bow, samurai build. I cannot wait to see what that means, because when I would roll enchantments on bows, it was always just the weight loss thing. So I've had to go with the full customization of bows in my current build. So I can't wait to see how that changes. For enemy and bosses, they polished animations and timings for several enemies. They added new armor variation to the Risen Iron Hand. They updated enemies' behavior. Now some of them can use jumps for navigation. They updated attack, dodge, and taunt animations for light-plagued enemies. They improved randomization of enemy armor sets. They improved hit reactions on siren enemies. They updated high-level behavior. Enemies can now use special moves more often, and rebalancing stats of both phases for the Echo Knight boss. They nerfed the health of both phases of the Fausted Derek boss fight in the Black Trench. For areas, they've improved collision faders and set dressing in Sacrament, the Black Trench, Nameless Pass, and the Crucible. They added new trapdoor interactables. They updated foliage in various locations, lighting improving across many locations, as well as housing interiors and vendor shops. They added in interactive inscriptions for Danish statues in Sacrament and Orbital Glades. They added in mini area underneath Prison of the Nameless Pass. I'm excited about all these new areas. War Room rooftop doors can now be entered before Servant of God quest is finished, and they replaced more static barrels with destruction ones in Sacrament. Additional quality of life, they improved the interaction priorities between ladders and pickups so that they can both be used at the same location. For settings, they added a mute audio on focus loss setting. Fascinating. And for input, they improved input responsiveness, performance, removed rewired, improved logic and actions to get shared buttons with others. The interact run rune toggles can now share a button with more other actions that don't conflict. They prevented overlapping several cases of actions that behave poorly together, e.g. interact and eat food. They added in support for numpad input. They added in movement axis mappings on the mouse buttons. They added in an optional toggle walk run input so that schemes to allow running without holding a button. They stopped processing input while the Steam overlay is active, thank goodness. They added in input priority when performing rune attacks and when near interactables. They fixed cases of the UI referencing default mappings and other keyboard mappings when on Gamepad or vice versa. They prevented in quick spell rolls from occurring between consecutive bow rune attacks, and they fixed reset to default, resetting your keybind and gamepad mappings while editing other devices. For cinematic updates, the animation and lighting updates to the open scene, Risen Attack, Ship Ending, Ellsworth Speech, Selene and Mountain Gate, Winnick and Radigan Sewers ending the Inquisition Arrival cinematics. They added spinning animations to the ship's steering wheel during the Risen Attack cinematic. For audio, they added in new voiceover lines for several flavor and quests NPCs. They added fully mix overhaul to the number of players on humanoid enemy movements, such as large clamors. They added consistent enemy voice and weapon shield hit reactions. They updated the bow sound effects, unique vocalization, movement, and combat sound effects for fungal humanoids. They updated the audio on a number of potions like stamina and experience. They updated weapon sound effects for unarmed, blunt, and slashing fist combat. They reworked combat UI and sounds to charge attack, specials, enemy death, and blood splashes. They updated the cinematic maps for the ship prologue, Cherum chamber statue, and Inquisition Arrival cinematics. They added in custom vocalizations for enemies with the player failing to their death, and they updated spatial audio sounds for a number of areas. They added in bespoke wolf den ambience audio, and for the audio tech, they integrated additional sounds for the UI that was missing audio, like the community chest, repeatables, and contributions for bounties and challenges. They optimized the walk, jog, run animation toggling to use resources more reliably, and other miscellaneous miscellaneous optimizations to reduce resource usages. In visual effects, they improved to the mist in the Crucible atrium and arenas. They improved for the timing of the Crucible blood offering, the vinaigrette. It makes me think vinaigrette visual effect. They added spark visual effect whenever an enemy gets interrupted to give better player feedback, and the visual effect improvements for statue reveal in the Crucible atrium, and they improved the fog visual effect on the ship tutorial. Localization gets an update with improved UI to better support translations for realm setting pop-ups, adding in localization to rune and enchantment descriptions. Now, they said they have over 500 bug fixes. As we just scroll down this list, you can see it is pretty substantial. Let's talk about the known issues, though, before we get into the bug fixes, just because you might not necessarily need to know what all the different bug fixes are. So I'll let that be your choice. For the known issues, just in case, they are aware of some larger issues in this build that we are already working on and will have a hot fix out as soon as possible. Being stuck in transitions at the start of the end of cinematics for a short duration, losing resources to take you out of refineries if you have a full inventory, and Sacrament intro cinematic characters loading in before the cinematic starts and then resetting, and Senshal missing graphics for builder projects. So let's now dive into the meat of this update. Obviously, all these different bug fixes. Let me see if I can find an easier way to kind of communicate this. They have fixed Twitch authentication. They fixed area discovery notifications. They fixed Lord of the Musk weapon descriptions. They fixed the spot where you can climb up a wall and skip part of the level in Nameless Pass. Hopefully that means that people can still get through Nameless Pass. They fixed the chest trying to hide in a wall of Nameless Pass. They fixed certain vendor map markers not showing on the map. They fixed enemy positions in Patrol Pass for Mariner's Keep. They fixed climbable pillars that allowed players to get out of bounds in Sacrament. They fixed Finley's sign not being interactable. They fixed being able to climb up on pipes nearly in the junction bits in the Black Trench. They extended an invisible collider so that players wouldn't clip behind the lever in the Black Trench. They fixed falling out of the world between two buildings when Gordon's kitchen was upgraded to level 2. They fixed a large hole halfway up the mountain in Nameless Pass and was hidden under a brush when dropped players to their death. They fixed Western Quarry wall, not allowing players to reach an unfinished area within Nameless Pass. They fixed being able to skip a section in Nameless Pass by jumping across the bridge. They fixed enemies being unable to get behind a fire pit in Orbit and Glades. They fixed missing collision and haystacks in Sacrament. They reduced Whisper Strand follow distance so it doesn't distract from NPC encounters. They fixed localization for realms loading and flash screen. They fixed localization of Russian. They fixed rebinding interact being able to set an already occupied key. They fixed map marker pointing to the wrong direction in Riven's Twins Bounty. They fixed clipping with Odessa and ship's railing during the ship tutorial cinematic. They fixed dead NPC placement during ship tutorial cinematic. They fixed clothing and clipping through NPCs in the Acquisition Arrival cinematic. They fixed the RS shift for rebinding not being able to save properly. They fixed the fader in the staircase that was in the way players view the Crucible. They fixed a bugging and sliding ledge in Nameless Pass, and they fixed Gordon NPC eavesdroppings not working correctly. They fixed T-posing enemies when killed outside of player view. They fixed building and chances of it on frozen enemies. They removed chest spawns that was located in front of a ladder, interfacing with its interaction or interfering with its interaction. They fixed similar bounties rolling the same time. They fixed unlocalized NPC names. They fixed incorrect activities, interaction hints, and readable lore. They put a fix in for characters in the wrong direction and speaking to the NPC. They fixed 2D UI displays in 3D world space. They fixed collision in Melik's cage so players no longer get stuck. They updated the Gamepad HUD options for remap food, quick items, and main hand and offhand. They fixed walk on the cursor and rune button icons being displayed. They fixed missing health bar and wallow boss from the Abomination bounty. They fixed enemies not tracking the player while running behind the specific Crucible location. The Nilth Leviathan has learned now how to drown. Animation fix. They fixed chance of Risen Kindler throwing bomb in opposite direction of the player. They improved the ability to climb certain walls in the Crucible. They fixed confirmation modules in remapping screens, not reselected modules on controls list when closed. They fixed the F key binding, causing characters to fall off ladders no matter what action is bound to. They fixed Siren getting stuck in the environment in the Crucible. They fixed unreachable and floating chests in the Crucible. They fixed an unintended climbable edge in Nameless Pass. They fixed interaction with Finley's sign in Sacrament. They fixed player clipping through the vines at the Crucible location. And they fixed players jittering when jumping into Crucible walls on the Crucible. And then they fixed low damage on spike traps in the Crucible. They fixed male they fixed male hairstyles that could clip with the player forehead. They fixed hard to interact with chest and orbiting glades. They fixed a side button, key remappings not being displayed at the schema descriptions and tutorial prompts. They fixed loot orb appearing at the air of the Crucible, and they fixed zone and Crucible so that players can better see climbable areas and the lever. Fixed stretching mesh in the male body type neck. They fixed darkening on bonfires and Sacrament during certain times of the day. They decreased the run attack damage on the torn grub host enemy. They fixed a hole on the wall in Crucible where players could see out of the world. They fixed a gap in the geometry in Crucible, allowing players to fall out of the level. They fixed misaligned collision in the pond in the Crucible. They fixed collision in the pillars of the Crucible, allowing players to clip into them. They fixed double fade out effects in the end of the church cinematic, and they fixed base attack speed increasing percentages not working correctly. They fixed unintended enemies spawning in the Crucible. They fixed shift plus num making characters walk and dodge instead of run. They fixed the respawn position of the Crucible chamber. They fixed the camera in which we could often zoom out and the non-aggroed enemy in the Crucible. They fixed an instance where the player could have enough XP that would not level up. They allowed map gestures and runes to be rebound in the same buttons in the gamepad. They fixed the possibility of remapping the interact and occupant key. They fixed elemental damage descriptions. They fixed Torson's NPC voiceover cutting out too early. They fixed mouse and WASD descriptions, displaying the left mouse button instead of WASD. They fixed a crash related to upscaling when setting DLSS was not available. They fixed flame because become US blueprint not working on anvils. They gnarled saw weapon can now break destructible objects. They fixed NPCs rotating back to their original position after interaction with the player. They fixed Russian text within the realms of the select screen. They improved lighting sound statues in Atrium where it was too dark. They fixed sword special, not dealing damage in the right moment during the second impact when the enemy is staggered. They removed colliders from spikes in the Nameless Pass so that enemies will properly die and not get stuck within being pushed into them. They fixed collision of unintended areas in Nameless Pass, and they fixed enemies being pushed onto uneven collision with Whisper at beginning of the Nameless Pass. They fixed a gap in the geometry between Gordon's pantry and the one next to it, allowing players to get stuck. They fixed crash related to leap attacks. They fixed for death screen translations. They fixed players being able to climb the wall and jump out of the world house. They fixed collision on Nameless Pass bridge, allowing players to skip camera camp areas. They fixed player being able to climb the wall to reach the level early in the drainage cellars room in the Black Trench. They fixed a bug blocking the players after lowering water levels, blocking access to the lever in the Black Trench. They fixed collision on the Black Trench to allow players to go out of the world, and they fixed dark areas in the water in the Black Trench. They fixed player clipping through while avoiding the piston elevator in the Black Trench. They removed non-interactable barrels from the ship's interior. They fixed a bug where the players could fall to unintended areas in the potion seller's cave, and they fixed collision on rocks in the water where the shallows were allowing players to clip into the geometry. They fixed chests that were sunken into the ground terrain in Nameless Pass. They improved collision on sides of cliffs in orbital glades. They fixed players clipping inside the crate when climbing a ladder in Nameless Pass. They fixed the torn rat clipping through the door of the Crucible, preventing players from clearing the level. They moved around some rocks in Nameless Pass to avoid enemies falling into them. They fixed chest spawning particularly into a wall in Nameless Pass. They fixed collision on crane in Nameless Pass, allowing the player to have an easier time to jump back into it. They improved colliders on the Orbital Glades elevator. They fixed the invisible collider in the shallows. They fixed the dialogue prompts after rebinding the skip button. They fixed misaligned helmets in the captain's helm and the model of the characters' heads. They fixed the kill volume placement in the lower glades. They adjusted surface of rocks, preventing players from falling to their death easily in Orbital Glades. They fixed invisible collisions in Western Bonfire Tower in Orbital Glades. They fixed enemy spawns so they are not immediately facing the wall at the top of Orbital Glades. They moved rocks in Orbital Glades where the player were able to hide from enemies. They fixed locations where legs would clip through the wall and the player sliding into Sacrament. The player could no longer clip into the bale of hay in Sacrament, fixed an invisible climbable area in Sacrament, and they fixed enemies getting stuck in a tree when pushed off a ledge in the Crucible. They adjusted the NPC placement on the main deck of the ship so they are no longer floating in air. They fixed NPC Giles leaning against the air in Sacrament. They fixed NPC Flora levitating a little above the bench in Sacrament. They fixed a bug where players were unable to sort the inventory in Eleanor's vendor infuse menu. They fixed the player being able to push rats. They fixed reset to default, affecting all schemes rather than just the currently selected one. They fixed water splashes appearing overly gray in color. And they fixed weapon visual effects, staining the present after the player is killed during the attack animation. They fixed collision in the black trench where the player could appear floating in the air. They fixed collision where the player was able to dash into geometry in Mariner's Keep. And they fixed collision at Gorrigan's unbuilt kitchen to prevent players from clipping through the floor. They fixed collision on the rocks in next to the Rookery elevator in Sacrament. They added in player access to unintentionally lock the room near the war room. They fixed interaction radius in Finley's shop. They also changed Sacrament bounds to prevent part of Orbital Glades counting as Sacrament in the UI. They fixed collision in the shelf barrels in the crates near the training dummies. They prevented the player from clipping into the tower in Sacrament near Karina NPC. They fixed Collider where players were able to get stuck in the air and see out in the world in Sacrament. Improved camera shake during the Echo Knight fight. They fixed missing quest markers during the Rats and Raiders quest line. They fixed collision behind Mira and Mary's shop in town. They added collision to a rock in Sacrament that prevented did not have any. They fixed collision on Fountain Basin in Sacrament, allowing players to climb it. They prevented the player from stumbling when running to the stairs of the Rookery. They fixed for the changes to not be saved for rebinding configurations certain scenarios. They updated resolution on Steam Deck button icons. They fixed texture and gnarled staff. They fixed allowing missing attributes tutorial prompt to remain visible after closing the inventory. They improved camera shake during tree cutting to match collision time better. They fixed response time for double tapping when consume food items where you map to be. They fixed Prince of Lies armor set in the female and male characters. They improved food sorting to show foods at the higher heal values on the left. They fixed a spot where players could get stuck inside barrels outside of Derek's boss arena. They fixed where players could fall into the world through a gap in Caroline's End. They fixed fire spitter visual effects in Crucible. They fixed an issue where the armor, body colliders, and glove trims were hidden. They fixed the Druid Roots armor clipping. They fixed multiple armor sets from female and male characters. They fixed keyboard controls, the resources contribution panel. They fixed bugs when randomization challenges were abandoning them and re-accepting the reroll random elements of the challenge. They fixed double footstep audio. They fixed faders in the water area at Lower Sacrament. They fixed floating wave attack visual effects for the bonded witch enemy. They fixed bugs where enemy would stop attacking the player when they stand on a railing. They fixed tree clipping through the Taylor sisters roof in Sacrament. They fixed typos in the bounties and armor items. They fixed fire pit inventory tab to display food rather than resources right away. They fixed the unreachable chest in Nameless Pass. And they fixed Danos Vendor in the UI for different translations. They fixed Ore Vein blocking ladder Nameless Pass. They fixed the localization for gestures screen. They They fixed the unlocalized loading realm in different languages. They fixed the learning recipe not having the correct Russian translation. They fixed gestures in the map not having the correct Russian translation. They fixed Collider on the sliding edge in Nameless Pass. They fixed Gordon's voice line being cut off too early. They fixed pressing Y on the module screen and rebinding the menu, refocusing selector on the controls list. They fixed for rebinding and offhand use the key button 1C X or LT breaking switching tabs and discarding items. They fixed collision on vines in Nameless Pass where player was able to clip through. They fixed the sailor armor sets. They fixed Laura and Reed affecting performance. They fixed players being able to rebind rune controls to already bound key buttons. They fixed the quest completion UI displaying incorrectly. They fixed Risen, Leader, and Cherem taters. Armor sets. They fixed Uncaged Monstrosity bounty not accepting kills correctly. They fixed player dodging when trying to use the bow rune assigned to the same button. They fixed unintended rolling, and that button rune thing was always plaguing me. Fixed unintended rolling when tapping rune A too fast. They fixed collisions on ships so that the player is no longer able to jump on steering wheels. They fixed special buttons around the run being ignored. And then they fixed the Plague Doctor helmet, where players' neck was becoming invisible when wearing it. They fixed Collider's wind various armor sets on the female model. They improved the piece count of destructible barrels and improved performance. They fixed some UI objects being enabled and disabled at the same frame, causing performance issues. They updated mask on the Plague Doctor and Captain Rudolph armor sets. They fixed statuses not being removed after the dungeon expires and multiple of the same statuses being applied to the player. They fixed localization of not enough space in your gear inventory. They fixed the bug related to the comparison where stats is highlighted as a 0 change when it should not be highlighted as if the stats were equal. They fixed collision of lodgings staircase where players could spam dodge until they were out of bounds. They sped up the wind-up animation for the boar's charge attack. They fixed navigation for the enemy pathing and the ramp to Nameless Pass. They fixed a bug where the challenge wasn't updated and some looting on the medium and small dynamically spawned chest. They fixed wolf landing animation so that they will always land on the floor and not in the air. They fixed the charged firebow attack where the arrow was misaligned before firing. They fixed wolves dragging the player with long attacks. They fixed stove interaction UI displaying through different floors, levels, and housing. They fixed numpad keys being displayed as symbols in schematic descriptions. They fixed the attacks range on the Risen Bulwark. They also fixed localization on tuning wheel interaction prompts. And they fixed death reaction when frozen to different enemy types. They fixed eat action in the HD, still showing the default button when it is food is remapped, and they fixed floating debris, taking out a long time to disappear after breaking wooden doors. They improved the refineries display number to avoid confusion and remaining space. They fixed attributes on stats, being the screen being cut off in the Russian language. Fixed localization consumables for Russians. They fixed localization of bounties, the missing localization settings. They fixed symbol display and system into French languages, and they fixed issues in German and Japanese where the NPC names overlapped with the UI. And guys, that is a massive set of notes. Let's scroll down. Okay, it's cool. Everybody's just going to comment. I'm going to go ahead and like that. This was a massive set of notes. I know it was long, and if you hung out with me for the live stream and or the recording of this, thank you so much. It does mean the world to me, and just the fact is that we got through it. I think really the highlights obviously are the Crucible. I know I've seen chat fire off questions about, hey, when is going to be the multiplayer update? We don't know yet, but we should be getting a roadmap update soon, and we'll be giving you guys that information. Now, I'm going to wrap up the video. We'll hang out for a couple more minutes before I get to work. So thank you guys so much for watching, for listening. Thank you so much to the channel members and to Mike, who just gifted out 15 channel members, which means I owe you guys 5, and I will do that here after I finish recording the video. Thank you guys so much for hitting the like button and sharing out my content. And also, you guys are welcome to jump in the Discord, which is the top link in the description if you want to be additionally part of the community in many more ways, especially when we do eventually get multiplayer. We will be playing this game together forever. I don't know. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching and listening. I'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, take care.